soon.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. Today we're going to be looking back at a jam-packed Monday, 11 games on, lots of interesting things, waiver pickups, guys falling off, guys stepping forward. There's lots of interesting things happening in the NBA. Then of course previewing the 3 games we've got coming up for Tuesday for DFS. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. Let's start off the show where we always do. It is, of course,
Monstrous Line of the Night.
And the recipient of the Monstrous Line of the Night also gets
Waiver Wire Line of the Night.
And that is Cody Zeller of the Charlotte Hornets. Zeller has been absolutely fantastic since returning from his broken hand. Against the Warriors, he played 37 minutes. Remember last season, centers against the Warriors got killed. This season, centers against the Warriors put up good numbers, and Zeller's just the latest in a line of big numbers being put up against Golden State. 37 minutes, a career high, 28 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals and 3 blocks, 13 of 14 from the field, and hit both of his free throws. Over the last 2 weeks, Zeller is the 24th ranked player. Over the last 2 months, which is since he returned from his hand injury, he is the 55th ranked player. Yes, he is a must-add 12-team league guy who is available in 70% of leagues. His minutes are way up because Borrego realized that Bismack Biyombo is trash and Bill Hernangomez isn't too far behind, so we're getting a lot of Zeller minutes. He's gone to 30 minutes in 3 of his past 5 games. He's had 3 double-doubles since he's returned to action. He's blocked 7 shots in his last 3 games. He's rebounding well. And all this value is coming, and it hasn't been necessarily on high percentage shooting. Well, it was today, but some of his other games had been under 50%. Cody Zeller, he can't be left on the waiver wire in majority of leagues. Now we're getting down to playoffs in a lot of scenarios, so your team might be super strong. So you might have a team that's full of, you might have 13 top 60 guys. Hard to imagine, but it's possible. And therefore Zeller, who's maybe a top 80 guy, even though, as I said, he's been top 60 since he returned, maybe he doesn't fit in your team, and that's fine. But you got to have a look, does this guy fit? Don't be back thinking, is this the Cody Zeller from last season when he was playing behind Dwight Howard, even though he's better than Dwight Howard? Is it the Cody Zeller from a couple of years ago, when he was playing 24 minutes a game? No, this is a guy who has stepped it up, especially lately, and looks really, really strong. And it's probably going to fall off, and maybe the minutes come down, but I love what Cody Zeller is doing at the moment, putting up some really, really strong performances as your monstrous line of the night, and of course, your waiver wire line of the night today as well. The deep leaguer of the night is the best point guard on the Minnesota Timberwolves, Tyus Jones. Got to start with Jeff Teague out. He has been really good. I don't know how long I've said this for, that I believe Jones is the best point guard on this team. And we're seeing it now at the moment, or I believe anyway. 16, 1 and 8, 3 steals and a block, 6 of 10 from the field. He hit a 3. I can't wait to see what happens with this bloke next season. Does Teague test free agency? Do they not decide to match an offer for Jones in restricted free agency? Over his last 13 games, some of that is before his ankle injury, some of it is after. We're seeing Jones as a top 100 player, 26 minutes a night. Now, Teague missed today due to knee soreness. He had a hand issue as well. And yeah, the report is from The Athletic that it's not a long-term situation, a little bit of knee tendonitis. So look, adding Jones is fine. I don't believe that it's a shutdown fatigue. You know that I hate that term. But Jones is good. And I'd like to see if they would give him more of an opportunity. Now, do I have faith that Ryan Saunders will play Tyus Jones 30 minutes a night over Jeff Teague? No, I don't. But I also know that Tyus Jones is available in 95% of Yahoo leagues, meaning every single person in 14, 16, 18, 20 team leagues needs to add him, and you need to consider it in 12s. I think the likelihood of him remaining a 12-team must-roster guy is probably low, because I do think Teague will come back and will go back to 22 minutes or so of Jones, which would be disappointing. And then when Covington comes back, that probably impacts him as well. But he has been really good, and he's an excellent source of steals and assists as a streamer in those areas. You'd want him to hit a few more threes, and he's been really disappointing in that area, just 29% from three, really not taking any at all, and that does hold him back. But that assists and steals capability that Jones provides means that he can be a 12-team league guy, and it gets activated even further if he does happen to get more minutes if the Teague injury remains or is longer term than we're anticipating at the moment. Let's go on to the next one.
Young gun of the night.
The young gun of the night, of course. Well, not of course. Well, it is, of course, if you're watching on video because you can see it. It's Trey Young of the Atlanta Hawks. 41 minutes, a career high for Trey. 36 points, 8 triples, 8 assists. No defensive numbers, but the efficiency was there. 12 of 23 from the field and hit all 4 of his free throws. There was a definite slump from Young at the start of the season. I said maybe he can be top 50 second half. Well, he's better than that at the moment. Top 40 over the last 2 months, averaging 24 and 8 with a steal on 44 and 84%. It goes without saying that he's a must roster player. Still available allegedly in 12% of Yahoo leagues. That feels like a load of shit to me because I don't see any league at all where Trey Young is sitting on the waiver wire. He has been, I thought he'd have a really interesting and strong fantasy game this season. He has exceeded my expectations, especially recently. He's the 76th ranked player overall, but as I said, as the shots started to fall, we're seeing a lot more unlock, and since the trade of Jeremy Lin, we're getting even more happen here. Yeah, for Trey putting up some bigger numbers, getting more minutes, and looking really, really good in the process. So Trey Young is your young gun of the night, and someone who is, I think, is probably going to be a top 40 guy in the next couple of seasons. He's proven that he can stick in the NBA. Yeah, the Hawks aren't a good team. We're all well aware of that, but I think they're better than expected, and he's showing that as they improve and as they win games, he is a big part of it, and I think that's key for being a guy who can be a good player on a good team, and I think Young is at least trending in that right direction, which is massive for his long-term dynasty value. Let's go to the next one. Willy CauleyStein was not very good in this game at all. Only 13 minutes due to foul trouble. They had 5 fouls in that time. 4 points and 1 rebound, and that's literally it. No other stats at all. He was 2 of 4 from the field, didn't attempt a free throw. I've been talking about how I think that he is going to become droppable very soon, and you're probably already there, to be honest. Over the last month, he's outside the top 150. For the season, he's only 116th. So it's not like you should just be clinging to this guy with every being or every bit of strength that you've got. In some situations, he'll fit better. He's a real punt free throw-ish type guy. It's just 55% from the line on the season. Blocks absolutely no shots whatsoever. DeAndre Ayton would be proud of how few shots Willy CauleyStein blocks. And some of his recent value has really been bumped up by these weird defensive flurries that he's had. But he had that little stretch at the start of February before the break where he had 8 block shots in 2 games and has not blocked one since then. And then he followed that up with 9 steals in 3 games and then had neither of those today. And when those defensive numbers aren't there, the value is not there for CauleyStein. He is not a must-hold in 10s. Get him out of there. No worries about it in 10-team leagues. In 12-teamers, I really don't think that he is that he is a guy that we need to be necessarily holding on to. We saw Marvin Bagley, who's clearly at this point, not a better prospect, that's obvious, but even a better player than him at this point, even though Bagley is starting at power forward. But massive stuff from CauleyStein. I've been seeing this coming for a while, and although today it was a situation with fouls, he's not going to be getting the big minutes. In fact, over his last 11 games, he's averaging just 25 minutes a game, and I think that is a more realistic expectation for CauleyStein for the rest of the season. The plus-minus goats, big Dwight Powell moved into the starting lineup. He's always been a massive, the analytics have been a massive fan of his, and again today a plus 98.6. He just does things that helps teams do well when he's on the court, and that happened again today. I think with what we saw today with him starting, he is a must-add player. We'll talk about that later. Well, the worst net rating of the night went to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a negative 106.9. I don't like the way Doc is handling him. Now, to be fair, Shai isn't playing that well, but I think he's also not being used to his strengths. But in the flip side to that with Doc, just a quick shout out to him for getting on the mic at the end of the game and telling the crowd during a timeout, or calling a timeout so he could grab the mic and telling the crowd to get up for a standing ovation for Dirk Nowitzki. That's really, really good stuff from Doc, who seems like an absolute ripper bloke. I just criticise some of his coaching decisions, and I do think he's not using Shai really optimally. But again, Shai's not really helping his cause because he has been struggling in a big, big way. think goes without saying that Gilgeous-Alexander is not a 12-team league guy, or probably even a 14-team league guy. Really disappointed that he wasn't able to take that opportunity after the trade of Tobias Harris. Injuries, we had a couple of ones that looked like they're going to cost some games. Domantas Sabonis sprained his ankle with about 30 seconds left in the Pacers game today. It looks like he will miss some time there. We'll get an update on Tuesday. Of course, if he is out, that unleashes the Pacers' cock. Kylo Quinn will move into the rotation, and in 20 minutes a night, he can be at the very least a 16-team league guy, but probably a 14-team league guy, and a weird streamer in 12-teamers. We know that he can do damage in those 20 minutes. I'd look for him in as a stream option, but in those moderately sized leagues. While Boban Marjanovic suffered a knee injury, the Sixers are terming it a right knee injury. That does not sound good to me. I know it's a very nondescript description, but that's basically why it doesn't sound good, because they didn't just say it's a bruise, it's a tweak, it's a sprain. They said it's a knee injury. We're going to hear more tomorrow. Yeah, I think we might be getting some missed time here for Boban. If you did add him in 12-team leagues, I'd be pretty stunned if he played this week, to be honest. And then Embiid will be back, so his value's gone. So I think you can use that spot to go and grab Dwight Powell, to go and grab Cody Zeller as Boban. I would imagine is going to be, I'm not saying it's worst case scenario. I don't think he's missing 12 months. It's a possibility, but I would think that we're missing a significant, at least multiple games here for Marjanovic after that knee injury suffered today against the New Orleans Pelicans. Let's go into these games now, talk about them in a bit more detail. There are 11 of them, so we better not waste too much time. The first game, we look at the Portland Trailblazers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs kept this one a bit closer than anticipated, 123-110. The Blazers win. McCollum had 35 with 7 triples. Lillard 21, 4 and 8. So in terms of their DFS value, it was good that the game was kept a bit closer because they got to play. Mo Harkless also turning up a little bit at the moment. 9 points in 26 minutes, but 8 boards and 2 steals. He's providing some defensive value. More of a moderate-sized league. And when I say moderate, I'm talking 14 to 16. Deep, I'm talking 18 to 20. And standard is 10 to 12. So that's just a definition that I'm trying to throw out there to you guys. Harkless is available in 96% of leagues. He needs to be rostered in more of those, if not for his defensive ability alone. Yusuf Nurkic, 15, 8 and 4 in 29 minutes. So that meant Enes Kanter played only 19 and had 9 and 6. Now, Kanter's usage was down in this one, only 5 shot attempts. But this is a problem with a guy who probably maxes out at 20 minutes a night. Look, he'll get some nights at 23 when Nurkic gets in foul trouble. But I just see very limited upside in Kanter. The first 2 games were good from him. One was a massively elevated usage game where he got a lot of touches in junk time. The other one was where he shot 90%. So some reasons we think that's not realistic. This one here, I think the shots are a bit under, so he'll probably bounce back a little bit from here. He's more of I think a 14-team league guy than a 12-team league player, Enes Kanter. Jake Layman did nothing, 7 points in 16 minutes. He's always just been a real streamer. And we've got some extra minutes for Zach Collins with Layman struggling. I'd like to see more of Collins. And I think I'd like to see Portland try Collins because I think he's going to have more success in the playoffs and they need to get him in those right scenarios. More success than what Kanter will anyway. For the Cavs, Cedi Osman started off horribly but ended well. 27 points on only 16 shots, 3 triples and 7 rebounds. He's playing very well alongside Kevin Love, and that makes a bit of sense. When someone else has got the attention to be drawn towards them, his efficiency and his shot selection's improved. I think he's probably a 12-team league pickup, while Love played 28 minutes. Probably the most important stat there is the 28 minutes. 18 and 12 with 3 triples. The efficiency wasn't there, but those minutes are really enticing for Big Lovey. Jordo Clarkson, 19 and 5 in 28 minutes. His production had dipped and he was a 12-team league guy for a stretch. He's probably on the fringe now with how they're using him, but this was strong. While Larry Nance, another 28 minutes. I'm really worried about what Drew's going to do when Thompson's back. He's still, we're still persisting with 22 minutes of Ante Zizic here. But Nance was good, 10, 5 and 5. Is it enough to hold in 10 teams? Probably not. In 12s, I guess it would depend on who you're adding, but I would likely hold just to see where it goes. The Padawan Colin Sexton was dreadful, 11 points on 14 shot attempts, 1 assist, 1 steal. He's been better, but this was not at all good and not a 12-team league guy. While Brandon Knight was, he's bad. He's just bad now. He tore his ACL. He was bad before that. And that season where he put in that great performance for Milwaukee is, it seems unbelievable that this is the same guy. The next game we look at the Pistons and the Pacers. The Pistons win 113-109 for Indiana. Darren Collison 21, 3 and 5 in 30 minutes. It was an ability for the Pacers to limit their minutes in this one. Well, not intentionally, because they were getting beaten, so that they did keep some of their minutes down. Thad Young 10 and 12, 3 steals and 2 blocks. Been really, really strong lately, Young. While Wesley Matthews knocked in another 4 triples for 14 points. He's got that points and threes stream ability. With not a huge amount else. Sabonis was great before his injury, 23 and 7 on 69% shooting.
Giggity!
Of course, some missed time is likely coming, but I wouldn't be dropping him. While Miles Turner returned, he blocked 3 shots, but 3 of 10 shooting sours his night. Tyreek just the 16 minutes and went scoreless, and his drop-off has been amazing this year. For the Pistons, the Duck, Luke Kennard, 17 minutes, 35 minutes, 24 minutes in this one. Played well, 19, 4 and 2 with 5 triples, a steal and a block. And Dwayne Casey, he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. I'm glad that he's pissed off at me. I'd be pissed off at you too for your disgusting decisions of playing Langston Galloway 18 minutes a night. But it has been really strong from Kennard the last couple of games, and he is that fringe 12-team league guy. Reggie Jackson had 14, 2 and 5, while my mate Langston Galloway did have 13 in 18 minutes. That means a 0-point game in 20 minutes is on the cards. The Duke, much like Wes Matthews, Wayne Ellington had 14 points with 4 triples. Those guys are definitely the Spider-Man pointing meme, and that's how you use them in fantasy, streaming in for points and threes, and with the former Pistons player Reggie Bullock as well. They're all in that same group. While the old shark, Bruce Brown, Baby Shark, 30 minutes for 3 points. Didn't need to talk about him, just wanted to play the drop. Blake Griffin, 20, 10 and 10, a nice triple-double. Drummond, 26 and 16 with 2 steals and 3 blocks. His defensive numbers are through the absolute roof at the moment, and there is going to be some decline there, but that is clearly keeping his numbers really, really high. The Golden State Warriors beat the Charlotte Hornets 121-110. Boog Cousins, 31 minutes. It's a season high for Boogie. 24 and 11, a steal and 3 blocks. This looks like Pelicans and Sacramento Boogie Cousins in terms of stats, and his recovery from the Achilles has been amazing. He won't play 31 every night, but we've seen him do it now, and that's great. Draymond played through the ankle problem, 14, 8 and 10 with 3 blocks, one of his better games. Durant had 20 with 7 rebounds. Curry had 16, 5 and 6 with 4 steals on uncharacteristically poor shooting, while Clay had 26. So it was all their starters put up good numbers, and their bench did absolutely nothing, while Kevon Looney is really seeing his minutes reduced. Just 11 minutes here for Kevon. For the Hornets, Nick Batum started out well, faded a bit, but that's strong. 14, 5 and 6 with 3 steals. He is back in 12-team league consideration, while Miles Bridges just brutally bad again. He is not a 12-team league guy. He's rostered in 5% of leagues, so 16-teamers, sure. 14s, maybe. But he has not been good in the starting role. 7 and 5 with 2 steals, while Jeremy Lamb went back to 31 minutes. 16, 5 and 7 with 4 steals and a block. It feels like this role is going to be up and down. He's going to have his minutes shifted all over the place. If you've got him, you just hold and I guess see where this goes. Kemba had 23, 3 and 6, sprained his ankle early, but ended up with 41 minutes, so he looks like he is fine. Tone Parker also had a knee issue, but he was able to return to the game. Let's go on to the next game. We've got the San Antonio Spurs and the Brooklyn Nets. This is really bad from the Spurs to lose both games in New York against the Nets and the Knicks. Not that the Nets aren't good, but this really is hampering the Spurs' playoff chances. Good for the Nets' playoff chances. They win 101-85. Aldridge bounced back after that Knicks disappointment. 26 and 10 with 3 blocks, while DeRozan had 23 and 5, and Derek White returned. He started, he played 25 minutes. Now, he only had 7 points on 3 of 10 shooting, but if you know anything about Derek White, you know one of his strengths is high field goal percentage, so we feel good in that coming back. The rest of the stat line looks great. 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. Derek White should be rostered in every league. He's not. He's available in 55% of leagues. He should be rostered, and you should be considering him as like a top 80-ish, 85-ish type player for the rest of the season. I feel pretty good about Derek White. An interesting move from Popovich, moved Rudy Gay to the bench and then played him only 19 minutes. I would have to think that that's just because it was a back-to-back and it won't be a permanent move, so no panic there on Gay. While Davis Bertans started 31 minutes, 2 points. It was also a bad night for Bryn Forbes, for Marco Bellinelli, and Pat Mills, as all those guys really, really struggled, couldn't hit anything. For the Nets, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, a DMPCD, second consecutive game. He is not as good as Damari Cowell, Rowdy Rodions, Kuruks, Trevion Graham, Alan Crabb, many of these players, and I'm not sure he's going to be in the rotation very often from here on out. Karis LeVert looked the best since his return, 15, 5, and 7. Still, the shots didn't go down, but that's a very nice night. While D'Angelo had 23, 7, and 8 with 5 triples, and Smoke and Joe Harris had 15. All of those 15 points coming from 3. As for Rowdy Rodions, he's only really a Dynasty League guy at this point, but he is a starter in the NBA. He will be a starter in the NBA, and I think he will be a top 100 player in the next couple of seasons. Trevion Graham's starting, but it's doing nothing for us, while Alan Crabb is in the Bullock Allington. Someone else that I'm forgetting their name, three-point streamer guy. He had 8 points with 2 triples. He had not a must-roster guy by any stretch of the imagination. The Phoenix Suns won a game, 124-121 over the Miami Heat. Tyler Johnson, 2 big games in a row, 18, 1, and 5. Before we get all rock hard thinking about Tyler Johnson putting up 2 good games in a row, remember that he was shitful for about the first 5 games as a member of the Phoenix Suns. But in saying that, they are committed to giving him big minutes. They shouldn't be, but they are. And that makes him probably worth looking at in 12-team format, 67% available on Yahoo. Johnson's a guy that we want to take a look at, but again, if we're going to overreact to the last 2 games, then react appropriately to the absolute piss-poor performances we saw before that. 21 minutes for Jamal Crawford for God knows what reason. He was out of the rotation entirely before that. And we also had 17 Troy Daniels minutes, so shout out to those guys. 16 points for Jamal, 14 for Troy, and they're just as likely to not play at all next game. Booker had 20 points, while DeAndre Ayton got smacked by Hassan Whiteside. He only played 25 minutes. He had 5 fouls and had 14 and 10. And that meant that Rashawn Holmes could play more. Now, he didn't do anything in those minutes, 8 and 6 with a steal and a block, and I still do not believe that you should be having Rashawn Holmes as a 12-team league guy. Joshy Jackson played 25 minutes. He's just a disaster offensively, I feel anyway. 11 points on 14 shots. Don't worry about him in 12ers. While Kelly Oubre had 16 and 8 in his 26 minutes. The low minutes there are weird because, of course, you've got to give 38 minutes combined to Crawford and Daniels. Just holding there on Oubre, while we had 34 from McCall Bridges. The 8 assists are definitely
a surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
But don't expect those to continue. For the Miami Heat, you know that I love me some Kelly Olynyk, but I never expected 41 minutes out of him. It was a good night to be a tall, lanky white guy. 41 minutes, 28 and 10 for Olynyk, 4 triples, 3 assists and a steal, and knowing Spoelstra's rotation decisions, he'll probably play 21 minutes next game. Now, I say it all the time. If he's getting 30 a night, Kelly Olynyk is a top 100 player. He's a must-roster guy. But you should have zero confidence in that happening. This was a game without Scooter Magruder, Derek Jones Jr., Jim Johnson, and Justice Winslow, so it's not going to be possible. He's more of a 14-team flyer. Whiteside had 29 and 11. It looked pretty good for the second consecutive game, as did Adebayo, 14 and 9, but we know centers against the Suns generally go off. Dion Waiters, 12, 4, and 7. He's providing enough value to be a fringe 12-team league guy, while the iron shoulder Goran Dragic played 23 minutes, 10 and 4. A lot of people have been like, should I stash Goran Dragic? I didn't think Dragic was really a must-roster 12-team league guy before his knee injury. So I'm definitely not waiting until he gets back to 30 minutes here to be this option that I'm just wasting a roster spot on. That's how I view it. Maybe I'll be wrong on that, but he wasn't playing well before the injury. Duncan Robinson started this game, his first NBA start, 5 points in 22 minutes. I don't think we need to worry too much about him. Those other 4 blokes come back, and his ass is out of the rotation. I don't think we should be too concerned about Big Dunk. The Philadelphia 76ers get the victory over the Pelicans, 111-110. Toby Harris, 29 and 10, super efficiency, 63% from the field, 2 blocks. He's taken those extra 2 or 3 shots per game with Embiid out. It's really helping him. If you want to sell high, or if you can sell high, this is a great opportunity to do that. Boban went to the bench. He has struggled against the Pelicans in the past, but with Davis being limited, 12 and 10 with 2 blocks is about as good as you can expect for Boban, but as I mentioned earlier, the knee injury is a worry. While Jonah Bolden, he started 9 and 6, a steal and 2 blocks in 18 minutes is good, but foul trouble limited him. There's a clear pathway to him being a good fantasy player. It's just learning to stay out of foul trouble. He's just a dynasty stash at this point. Jimmy Butler couldn't hit his shots, 11 points on 16 shot attempts, but 7 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals and a block is nice production. While Prison Mike Scott had 12 points in 31 minutes, with both Boban going down and Bolden having the foul trouble. He got those extra minutes there. For the Pelicans, so much for Drew Holiday being limited. He played 34 minutes and had 22, 5, and 7 with 3 steals and a block. That's 2 consecutive games of minutes over 30 for Drew, and Julius Randle also big minutes, 19, 14, 3 steals and 2 blocks. Big minutes also for Lord Alfred Payton, who had 10, 4, and 14. And Payton, who's available in 51% of leagues, needs to be rostered in pretty much all 12-teamers. I think the dream of Cheick Diallo being a 12-team league guy is probably done. 17 minutes, 8 and 5. I really like him, and he's got a massive fantasy game, but it probably needs 24 to 25 minutes a night to unlock. Not unlike Rashawn Holmes, who I do really like, and some of my comments might think like I don't like him as a player. I think he's really good. But we've got to accurately try and assess where the playing time is for Diallo. And I also think that Jahlil Okafor can be dropped 6 and 4. That little nice 8-game or 7-game run where we thought, oh, maybe he is good. It turns out he's not. 6 and 4 in 17 minutes. It also wasn't a good Kenrick Williams game, 4, 2 and 2. But I would persist with him just with pretty low expectations on what he's actually going to become. The next game, the Atlanta Hawks and the Rockets. The Rockets win 119-111. The Baptist John Collins had 20 and 12, strong from him, while the Undertaker, Dwayne Dedmon. 33 minutes for Dedmon with 5 fouls, 9 and 7, 2 steals and 2 blocks, available in a lot more leagues than he should be, and he should be rostered, while Kevin Huerter returned. 23 minutes, 7 points. I'm pretty big on Huerter. This was not a good performance. Probably leave him for the moderate-sized leagues at this point. You've got to make some cutthroat decisions coming into fantasy playoff times. Kent Bazemore played 32 minutes, but the artist formerly known as Taurean Prince will be back next game. I would imagine Bazemore goes to the bench and plays 24 minutes, but he's worth a look in 14-team leagues, especially with Lynn no longer there. There's some extra minutes for Kent to get that playing time. For the Rockets, I talked about, I think yesterday or maybe the day before, that Chris Paul appears back. 20 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. Yeah, he does seem back. Well, interesting move for the Rockets. They did keep Kenneth Faried in the starting lineup, even with James Harden back, sending Eric Gordon to the bench. Now, he only played the 26 minutes here, Ken, but 13 and 10 with 2 blocks on 50% shooting. It's enough to get me interested. Will they play him consistently next to Capella? I'm still not sure that it works. But he's providing good energy, and as a back-end guy in 12-team leagues, maybe I was wrong about, or I probably at this point I look like I was wrong saying I think he's only going to be playing behind Capella, because I'm clearly wrong about that. In the few games since Capella's been back, we've seen him share the court with him for 2 minutes a night, then also have 2 starts next to him. I think there's still a little bit of chopping and changing there, but for now they're going with Faried to get more rebounding on the court, and it's working out in fantasy managers' favours. Capella was not that good, 12 and 8. While Iman Shumpert and Gerald Green, they're the big losers there, with Faried getting those extra minutes there, the guys coughing it up, which seems odd for a D'Antoni team to be losing 3-point shooting to get a non-floor spacing big man to play next to another non-floor spacing big man. Let's go on to the next one, the Lakers and the Grizzlies. I said yesterday the Lakers just have to win this game. They didn't. The playoffs are looking like they're almost going to be impossible for them to get into at this point. The Grizzlies win 110-105. Ingram was good, and he's been really, really good lately. 32, 6 and 4 with 3 triples, and hitting 3 triples on 3 attempts is impressive for him. I'm still not completely sold, but if this is what he does as a point guard, then there is real value in him. Of course, Rajon Rondo was dreadful. 16 minutes, 2 points and 0 assists. I think there is a legitimate chance that he is out of the rotation entirely whenever Lonzo Ball returns. But there's no reason for me to be holding on to Rondo in any 12-team formats. Reggie Bullock, it was a nice, interesting night for guys like Reggie Bullock, Wes Matthews, and Wayne Ellington. All 3 of those guys scored 14 points, and all 3 of them had 4 triples. That is what they are. They are 3-point streamers, and Bullock did it again. Josh the Hitman Hart played 6 minutes. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope played 18 minutes. Those guys they're really losing out to Bullock, and they could lose out even further. Good to see Mike Muscala, the player that the Lakers traded for in order to rid themselves of Ivica Zubac. He was crap. 3 points with 2 blocks, while McGee had some foul trouble. 6 and 9 with a steal and a block. I still think JaVale is worth holding in some 12-team formats, but again, you might need to make hard decisions. The future MVP had an empty 22 points. Such is his style. Oh, a quick mention of LeBron, who had 24, 12, and 11. A triple-double with 3 steals in 40 minutes, and the Lakers still lost. For the Grizzlies, Jonas Valanciunas, 25 minutes. Foul trouble limited him a little bit, but 20 and 13, 1 steal and 2 blocks. It's the time of Jonas. We've been waiting for this, and here it is. Mickey Conley, 32 and 5. Big from him. Well, what the hell is going on with Joakim Noah? 14 and 12 in 23 minutes. 4 assists and a block. It's like we're back in time here. We had Derrick Rose at the start of the year. Luol Deng is alive again. Joakim Noah's coming in and playing big minutes and playing well and playing weirdly into a spot where you've got to consider him in fantasy leagues now. Over the last 2 weeks, it's only 5 games. He's the 74th ranked player. over the last month. He's the 104th ranked player. Is he a guy I'm adding in 12-team leagues? No. But could I stream him in 12-team leagues? Yes, absolutely. In 14-teamers, I'd probably add him. Ivan Rab has been impressive occasionally, but ultimately not. And Noah's doing well. Rab had 6 and 5 in 19 minutes here. Probably want to drop him from 12s. Avery Bradley was pretty good here. A nice 14-team league player. Well, Delon Wright, 9, 6 and 4. Just give him minutes, man. I want to see what he can do. I don't need to see this from Avery Bradley, but I do want to see it from Delon. I think Delon is a 12-team league player. Let us go on to the next game. We've got the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls. Just really interesting stuff here from the Bucks. They win 117-106. Not only was their best player, Giannis Antetokounmpo, out and probably the league MVP, Sterling Brown was out and George Hill was out, and they took on the Chicago Bulls, who've been playing really well at home, and then without those guys, they decided to just rest their other players as well, and by rest them, they just said, well, we're going to limit the minutes of every starter, and they still won on the road. That's how good this team is. Brogdon played 25 minutes, Mirotic 23 minutes, Bledsoe 26, Middleton 27, Lopez 27. Nobody played more than the 28 minutes and 27 seconds that Pat Connaughton played, who had 10, 6 and 5. That is how good they are. Mirotic had 13, 4 and 2 with 3 triples. He's a 12-team league guy, while Ilyasova started for Yanni and had 10 and 6. We also had DJ Wilson back in the rotation. He looked good in his 20 minutes, but he'll likely fade away when Antetokounmpo's back. And they also got Isaiah Kanan, who signed 3 hours before and came in and played 12 minutes, had 6 points with 2 threes. And if Mike Budenholzer can make him an NBA player, then I don't know what the hell to think anymore. This was a weird game when looking at this box score from the Bucks, as they really did limit everybody. Shout out to Lopez again, who had 5 blocks. For the Bulls, Larry Markkinen was at it again, 26 and 12. And let's talk Robin Lopez, another in those WTF, what is going on moments. Lopez, 26 points in 34 minutes with a block on 63% shooting. He's a 12-team guy. There's no arguing it now. You've got to have him in those, or he shouldn't be on waiver wires. Levine struggled with his shot, 11 points on 13 attempts, but really did well with the 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and 2 blocks. And he's turning into a very complete stat stuffer type of guy, not a complete player because his defense still sucks, but he's providing value in other areas apart from scoring. We had no Otto Porter and no Chris Dunn. Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot started. He had 12, 7 and 4. That's okay. Ryan Archer-Jacquino had 7, 3 and 6. Also not too bad, but nothing long-term to really see with those guys. A lot of people asking me about Chris Dunn. Do I have to drop Chris Dunn? Well, today he missed because of a migraine. It's not an injury issue. And yeah, he's been sucking. But so many of these times when you're asking, who'd rank these guys? Do I drop this guy? Do I add him? We're fantasy playoffs here. We're at the pointy end of roto leagues. We're almost in the playoffs or we're in the playoffs. You got to look at your team. Do you need Dunn's assists and hopefully steals, which haven't been great this season, but they've still been okay, 1.4 per game this season? Do you need those? He's still the 86th ranked player this season, Chris Dunn. 90th over the last 2 months. Yes, the last run of games haven't been good. He's averaging just 9 points. The usage has dipped and the steals have fallen off. And he is not a good NBA player. He is not an NBA caliber starter, and he's not a future star or point guard. He's not. Simple as that. And I've been saying this for his entire NBA career. And there's a chance that he loses some minutes to Archer-Jacquino here. But he still can come in and give you some assists and give you some steals. It's been a little bit of a lean run here these last couple of games. And in some cases, yeah, in 10-10 leagues, he probably is a drop. In 12s, I'd probably hold. But it all depends on who else is available and what stats you need. Because that's what's really important here. It's not about overall value or in a vacuum, because it means legitimately nothing at this point of the season. It means nothing most times of the season, but it means even more nothing at this point in the season. There's no such thing as overall value. It means nothing, I can assure you. And I'd imagine that Dunn will be back next game for the old Chicago Bullsies. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the Sacramento Kings and the old Minnesota Timberwolves. As I referenced earlier, Marvin Bagley III, he started over Bogdan Bogdanovic. 37 minutes for Bagley, 25 and 11, 1 steal, 2 blocks, available in 26% of leagues, which is 25% too many. He needs to be rostered in all 10 and 12 team leagues, and I don't think he'll be giving up this starting spot really anytime soon. If Bogdanovic comes back into the starting lineup, I would imagine it'd be at the expense of CauleyStein. Budrick Hield had 18 and 8. The pencil Harrison Barnes had 2 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals. And Barnes doing something other than scoring in this game finally. And in that game, he didn't actually score. 2 points on 0 of 4 shooting. The 4 assists and 4 steals is more fluky than him missing all 4 of his shots. A question for everybody listening, which you can, of course, tweet at me, comment on YouTube. Is Bogdanovic a better player than Harrison Barnes? To me, he is, pretty clearly. but will Jaeger ever give him those minutes over Barnes? It doesn't appear so. Fox had a nice 23, 3 and 5, while Bielitsa actually re-entered the rotation because of CauleyStein's foul trouble. We even got 2 minutes of Costa Koufos here for God knows what reason. Bielitsa played 10 minutes, but nothing to get excited about with him. For the Wolves, Townsy was back after his concussion. Obviously no ill effects, 34 and 21 with 5 assists and 2 blocks. That was massive. Okogie had 6 points with 4 steals. Bob Covington, who was the guy that had the quote at the start, and that quote was just soon, which I think is an encouraging thing for his return. That's going to impact Luol Deng and Josh Okogie, who both played 26 minutes in this game. Taj Gibson, exclusively backup center. Gorgie Jeng out of the rotation. Just the 17 minutes for Taj, while we only had 23 Dario Saric minutes. And I think holding Saric in a 12-team probably isn't the best method at the moment. Wiggins was shitful, 8, 3 and 5 in his 31 minutes, while Tone Tolliver replaced Jeng in the rotation, taking those backup 4 minutes, pushing Gibson across to the 5. And that means you can get some very, very deep league value out of Tony Tolliver. Derrick Rose had 20 points. He had nothing else. 1 assist, 5 rebounds, no defensive numbers. 38% usage is high, obviously, for Rose. I'm not saying he's a drop, but he's also nowhere near the player he was at the beginning of the season. The last game of the night, the Mavericks and the Clippers. The Clippers won. Well, they won 121-112. Let's talk Dwight Powell, who played 37 minutes in the start. First time they've really gone to him as a starter since DeAndre Jordan left. 24, 8 and 4, and he had a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
Really massive game from Powell. He was 10 of 11 from the field, so obviously we can't expect that. But in the last 2 weeks, basically since the trade, he's the 76th ranked player. He is a must-add player. He is a must-roster player. He is a clear 12-team league guy who's available in 83% of leagues. Rectify it. Luka Doncic had his 4th triple-double, 28, 10 and 10, while Timmy Hardaway looking a bit more comfortable now in Dallas, 20 and 6 with 4 triples. Maxi Kleber moved to the bench, blocked his shots, hit his threes, which is where his value comes from, but in 18 minutes, I'm not so sure about him as a 12-teamer, but available in 95% of leagues, meaning in 16-teamers, what are you doing? Like, Kleber's an option there. And Dirk's playing some minutes now. He's starting, 26 minutes here, 12 and 5. Yeah, that's an 18-team league, 16-team league potential there for old Dirk. For the Clippers, Ivica Zubac's only 19 minutes. I think we can move on in 12-teamers. The table, Montrezl Harrell, 32 and 5 with 2 blocks. Massive from him. JaMychal Green was also pretty strong, 11 and 8 with 3 steals. A 16-team league sort of a guy, but when Baby Neck Wilson Chandler returns, I think that has a little bit of an impact on JaMychal. The Rooster had 20. Lou Williams had 20 with 10 assists. Strong from both of those guys. Well, it was also a really good Pat Beverly night. 17, 8 and 9 with 5 triples. He's on the fringes of 12-team leagues, while Landry Shamet, 2 triples, 6 points, 22 minutes. If you added him in 12-team leagues, I feel pretty good about saying that you can move on from him. Alrighty, let's move now into this into DFS. Flick it over into the DFS portion of the show, and we'll start that by looking at the perfect lineup on DraftKings. Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Tobias Harris, Draymond Green, Karl Anthony Towns, Pat Beverly, Kelly Olynyk, and Cody Zeller for a total of $416. That costs $49,600. And on FanDuel, Tyus Jones, Pat Beverly, McCollum, Jeremy Lamb, LeBron James, Brandon Ingram, Kelly Olynyk, Julius Randle, and Cody Zeller for a total of $396.5, and that cost $59,600 dues. Alright guys, let's take a look at these games. DFS for Tuesday, a really small slate, only 3 games on. We're going to be focusing mainly on DraftKings pricing today. The first game we take a look at, the Orlando Magic traveling to take on the New York Knicks. The Knicks just got a victory, which was their first in quite a while at home. The Magic, of course, just obliterating people. The Magic are 7-point favorites. 6.5-point favorites in the total, 215.5. The Magic really looking to get these wins up. Another great opportunity for them here as they look to push towards the playoffs. DeAndre Jordan is doubtful for the Knicks. No doubt there'll be some sort of Knicks tomfoolery with the rotation. Who knows what's going to happen? Will Luke Cornett actually play? Will Lance Thomas start? I would imagine we have Noah Vonleh as the starting center again, and then what happens at maybe they exhume Mario Hezonja, who about 2 weeks ago started and played 30 minutes a night again. Nobody has any idea what Fizdale's going to do because, as I continually say, he has no idea what he is going to be doing. Let's have a look at the point guards here. Alonzo better than Doncic. Trier is at 3,600. You feel like the opportunity could be afforded to him, but of course we never know, making him just a tournament sort of a guy. But that price, which is getting close to minimum, does have some upside there. DJ Augustin, Isaiah Briscoe is out for Orlando as well. So DJ Augustin in that last game, he had 32 points in 27 minutes. Got a little bit of extra playing time. He is in play in a positive matchup. Jaren Grant also dropped in 26 points as the backup and at 3,400. Another name who you should be considering on this limited slate of games. Dennis Smith Jr. is coming off a big 52-point performance against the Spurs at 6,700. There's a lot of value, there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of Fizdale, which means that we could have Moutier coming in and taking some of his minutes, which has happened in both of the games since Moutier has returned. I wouldn't be using Manny, though, at his $5,000. Damo Dotson at 4,400. He's going to be used pretty much everywhere. Going to be really, really chalky. Big games, the last two. No one's denying that. But of course, it's Fizdale. So does he go back to 22 minutes a game? Does he still play 27 and see 5 shots? Or the other thing that could happen is Dotson's shot just might not go in at the same rate that it's been happening the last couple of games. And that's a distinct possibility. But at 4,400, it's almost impossible to ignore him. So I like him a lot. I like Terry Ross a lot at 5,300, who has been rock solid. Love him for cash, love him for tournaments, while Evan Fournier at 58, there are better options that you can use at that shooting guard, small forward position. Asa Gordon at 6,400 was pretty poor in the last time out for the Magic, but I like the ability here for him to bounce back and put up a 30-plus game, so I like him there. Johnny Isaac at 58, I think that price takes away a lot of his ceiling. I would much rather go down the $600 in a tournament and use the Fort Kevin Knox at 5,200, who has his limitations, but at 5,200, my confidence in him getting to 25 points it's a lot higher than my confidence in, say, John Isaac getting to 30, and that's sort of the differences between their salaries here. Lance Thomas, he did play a lot and had 27 points in 30 minutes last game, but I'm not going to put faith in that because you shouldn't. But at 3,300, if they announce him as the starter, maybe. I'm going to say maybe not is probably the most realistic answer. And that 27 he had last game was his highest score for the season. On to the big man, Mitchie Robinson at 5,400. You got to love using him here. The fouls are always scary, but he can resurrect himself by putting up 3 blocks in 20 minutes or so. Hopefully Fizdale pushes him through, or Robinson at least can stay out of foul trouble, but there's a massive opportunity here for him. There's also a massive opportunity for Nikola Vucevic of the Orlando Magic, 9,600, almost on lock for 50 points here. One of the best cash guys that you can build around on this slate. Vonleh, who could get another start at center, I don't think we need to care too much about him for DFS purposes. Let's have a look at it on FanDuel. Similar sort of stuff. Mitchie Robinson we like a lot. Aaron Gordon, Vucevic, Trier at 37 for that tournament upside. Jaren Grant the same. Dotson's up to 5,400 on FanDuel, so that takes away a little bit of his value, but he still is in play. Same as Augustin at 48 in that tournament value. And the 7,400 for Dennis Smith. There's a lot more risk involved in using Smitty at that elevated salary just because of the Fizdale factor. All right. Let's go on now to the next game, the second game of the night. We're looking at the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are 4-point favorites. The total is 226. We should see the fun guy Kawhi Leonard back.
I'm a fun guy.
After he rested in that last game. Marcus Smart is at 4,100. I like that. I like it as a floor value for Smart. I like it for 27, 28 point upside. I think he's a strong floor play here. While Irving at 8,800 has played 40 minutes in both games post All-Star break. He doesn't need 40 to get to 45 points. I think that he's going to push to 50 odd points here with a decent level of confidence. In fact, his last 3 games against the Raptors, he's averaging 57 points, Kyrie. So I like him a significant amount. Lowry's at 7,300. I actually think that's a pretty good spot for Kyle also, who's putting up some strong games, although some of those have been without Leonard in the lineup. Rozier and Jeremy Lin probably guys to leave alone. Dan Green's at 4,000. Only ever going to be using Green as a tournament guy. The matchup doesn't really particularly suit him. And Jaylen Brown at 4,600. There are better options out there than Jaylen. I think Gordon Hayward you have to at least consider at 4,300. Yeah, he struggles when Kyrie's there, no doubt about that. But at that sort of a salary, that could be a real tournament-changing guy to put in there. That's a low salary with 30-point upside. Worth looking at. Jason Tatum's at 59. Probably more cash than tournaments, but still something there. Leonard at 92. I told you I like that a bit. No, I haven't told you. I'm telling you now. I do like that a bit. Marcus Morris at 47. There are better ways out there, I think, to spend that sort of cash. For the big men, let's lock and load with Siakam at 7,000 and Al Horford at 63. Horford averages 38 against the Raptors in the last three. Really, really like him, and he's in a pretty good vein of form at this present time as we speak. While the center spot in Toronto, Marc Gasol or Serge Ibaka.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I don't know which way they're going to go. I would imagine they go back to Gasol, and at 5,700 there is appeal in Gasol. Probably less so in cash, but more in tournaments. While Ibaka coming in at 6,100, I'd probably end up fading Serge just because of the uncertainty of how those minutes are going to break down, and you have to spend an extra $400 to take Ibaka versus Gasol. So I would take Gasol if I'm going to use one of them, but there's still a level of caution has to be used with both of those guys. On FanDuel, Leonard, Gasol at 57 is a more appealing 5,700 on FanDuel than on DraftKings. Siakam at 75 looks good. Kyrie at 97 I'm still in on. The 4,900 for Jaylen Brown is a more appealing play on FanDuel. That's got some really interesting tournament value. And Tatum at 67 has some value, but not again the number one guy that we're looking at. The last game is a really strong Western Conference game. The Thunder traveling to take on the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are 3.5-point favorites, and the total here is the biggest of the night, 237. So the closest spread, the largest total. This should be giving us some sort of GPP stack vibes, definitely. Paul Millsap's been on fire. Continuing that against one of the best defenses in the NBA might be a bit of a challenge, but it's something that we have to look into. The Blue Arrow, Jamal Murray, is down to $6,000. Now, he had 32 points in 24 minutes last game. I still think he's a nice tournament guy, but I'm not looking at him for cash. Well, Dennis Schroeder is at 4,300, really just a tournament guy who can occasionally go off. Westbrook at 11,000, I'm in on, while Isaiah Thomas at 3,800. I think you have to look at that with some level of appeal. He only had 17 points on DraftKings last game, but 24 minutes is the most important number there. So some GPP value for him, while Monty Morris at 4,000 was also great last game. Just finding minutes for all these guys, and you wouldn't want to have a Murray, Thomas, Morris combination stack because that's just sort of cannibalizing each other, but using those guys in amongst a few other players from this game could work out, but it's finding the right combination. Malik Beasley, another one of those at 4,200. I think that his unfantasy friendly or un-DFS friendly game with the squeeze on minutes makes him probably a fade, almost definitely a fade to me. Farton Will Barton's at 49. Maybe the hate's gone too far on him. He's been poor, no doubt. Tournaments only for Barton, but it could be a sneaky one as his roster percentage would likely drop after last game's performance. While Gaz Harris... He's at 4,500, looked better last game. We just need the minutes to go up. More of a tournament look, but still some value in Gaza in this one. Paulie George at 10-4, a bit of an off game last one, but I look to him to bounce back. I'm interested in him quite a bit. Markeith, that's not going to happen. And then the big man, Millsap, 6,200. He's averaging a robust 51 points over the last three. And while I don't think that's a possibility, I think he can be a 30-point guy. Probably more of a tournament guy because I'm just not fully there in terms of confidence. Steve Adams at 56 has seen his price come down pretty precipitously. He's done very well against Jokic in the past, averaging 40 points in the last three encounters against Denver. And that low salary, I'm in on Adams here. Jokic at 10,000, that's rock solid cash, and I like it for tournaments as well. Really, really in on him. Jeremy Grant at 46. With the arrival of Morris, it's maybe taken a bit of the edge off Grant. I'm not seeing great value there. Mason Plumlee, who's actually Mason Plumlee is putting up 24-25 a night, but the salary reflects that at 4,800, so that takes away a situation where maybe you could have found some sneaky value. On FanDuel, Barton at 5,200 and Jamal Murray at 68. Some interesting tournament guys, but not much more than that. Adams at 6,600. Again, the record against Denver does play in his favor, so he'd be a name I'd consider. I like Jokic a lot. Isaiah Thomas at 39. I really like that for tournaments. Paul George at 11,600. That's interesting. The 12-2 for Westbrook is, I think, maybe pushing it a little bit too far, especially on a limited slate like the one that we're looking at here. Let's look at some studs and values. On DraftKings, I like Jokic as my stud guy, averaging over 50 the last three against the Thunder. My value is Marcus Smart. On FanDuel, my stud is the fun guy Kawhi Leonard, and my value play is Marc Gasol. On Yahoo, the stud is Leonard as well, and the value is Damo Dotson at $1 above minimum. And then on DraftStars, my stud is Jokic, and my value play is Isaiah Thomas. That'll wrap it up for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Make sure, guys, after you've finished here, go check out the other shows on the network, and the best way of doing that in your car is telling your smart device to play the podcast Locked On, and then insert the team name there. You don't even have to use your hands. Your car and your audio smart device will, of course, just get that playing straight for you. Podcast right across the NFL as they prepare for the NFL draft, the NBA as we push into the playoffs, and then Major League Baseball is going to be starting up pretty soon as well. So check those out. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball, and the network at Locked On NBA Net on Twitter and on Instagram. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Robert Covington.